slide, and we'll learn how to make overlays. You can slide overlays that you make into the IntelliKeys, and then through Classroom Suite, you tell it the overlays attached to your activity, and it sends the information to the keyboard, so that if you have one, you have maybe two keys on it, one says open and one says close. I'll show you an activity in a little while. You push the open and a box opens, you push the close and a box closes. It's to give younger kids that have really more limited fine motor, kids who may have attending issues, kids who you're trying to work on cause and effect, but you're past cause and effect, now you want cause and effect to help build a concept. So if I'm having kids hit an open and hit a close and a box is opening and closing, that's cause and effect, but it's also teaching the concept of open and close. And so if you, there's some nice writing kinds of templates that you can use that would have toolbars or word banks for kids to fill in activities. And where IntelliKeys can be more helpful than maybe a mouse, I have some kids who can use a mouse. So I'm not using the IntelliKeys because they don't know how to use a mouse. I'm using the IntelliKeys because they overuse the mouse. They get a mouse in their hands and they're click happy. Click, 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 and they don't think. They're just impulsively clicking. And so one of the things that the IntelliKeys does is it kind of slows down that process, because a lot of kids stim off of the clicking and they're not really thinking. This slows them down and makes them think. The other thing is I have found the computer to be a great place to build social skills for kids that have trouble building social skills, because the computer is such a win-win. People like it so much that I can put two kids in front of it and they're so enthralled with the computer that they'll work on sharing, or else if they don't, I close it. So that's kind of like they have to. They either have to work on sharing or the computer goes. So now it's way easier to present an IntelliKeys to take turns with than a mouse, because they grab the mouse, they grab the wire, you get into this little battle. So in terms of behavior management, attention management, impulsivity, sometimes these alternate keyboards can really be helpful. Which one did you?
My favorite pet.
Yeah. Hold on, let me slide it in there. Okay, go ahead. I'm so excited to get to tell your favorite. Which one did you like? The dog? That's like Susan's dog, Peanut. Do you like Susan's dog, Peanut? Yeah, when he comes to the office. Okay, so now Becca would not be able to write a sentence about the story we just read without having word and picture choices up there to help her generate the sentence. She doesn't have the retrieval ability, she doesn't have the language ability. But having seen the words, she can read them and articulate them perfectly. There's some connector between here and her mouth that isn't functioning in terms of, I think she's aphasic. She just can't remember and how to organize language. But once it's there in front of her, she can pull it together. So what she's doing is she's hitting, my favorite pet. This key says, my favorite pet. When she hits it, the words, my favorite pet, come across the screen. And then she scans down, sees her choices, she makes another choice, and it finishes the sentence. And so this is also a nice bridge for kids where you're going between pictures and words. So we don't want to hold off on having kids write until they can read words or write with a pencil. That's the purpose of this class, is that we're trying to figure out how to give everybody a pencil, give everybody access to the curriculum through technology. So if we have kids and we say, well, you know what, they can't write because they don't know words, they can use pictures to begin to write stories. So this applies to preschool population that are developmentally young and don't have words, but this applies to our 22-year-olds who don't have words, where we still want them to do some writing. And we can take pictures of things they've done in the community and attach words to it, and they can do a journal of what they've done during the day using only pictures, and it generates simple sentences. So they're starting to see the connection between what they've done and the written word. And that's what emergent writing is about. So trying to give kids that experience, kids, adults, teenagers, that experience with writing, even if they can't write totally on their own. We've got to have this idea that here they are able to maybe have a semi-good idea about sequencing pictures, and we keep thinking we're going to hold off on this writing thing until they can hold a pencil and form words. There's a philosophy, this readiness philosophy keeps people out of the real curriculum. If we're always saying, well, until they know all their letters, and until they can hold the pencil, and until they can do some phonemic awareness, they can't write. Well, we could be waiting forever for people. You know what I'm saying? And that's just not fair. When we can give them a scaffold and a way to do writing that would help them get to the next step. And that's the whole idea, is how to move them to the next step. Remember, we had our story about all these animals. There's a snake, and a hippo, and a lion, and the zebra, and the elephant. And you can tell me the story about what they all did. Let's look down and I'll show you. Here's the most important part. This one says, went to bed. This one says, crash, crash, crash. Whoa, we know when that happened. Oh gosh. Oh my God. And this one says, went to the hospital. So when we write so now when I give a child a tool to write with, I give them an overlay. I have to be able to model for them where things are. We take for granted that we can look at these pictures and understand what the meaning is, and yet this is a little girl, is Beth B. Yeah. So this is a young lady who in school isn't getting these kinds of experiences, because they think she's functioning at a 9-month level, so they're not going to have her write. So she's seeing me once a week. I'm going to not hand her an overlay and expect her to write with it. I'm going to model. We're going to have a conversation. She's going to practice using her eyes, looking at different things, because that's how she writes, is by using eye gaze, so that she can figure out the plan of what's on there. That's the part that we have to help our students with. We can't just give them the tool and go, okay, here you go. Because it just isn't going to work. It's not going to be effective. Now, the interesting thing is, for my kids, I find repeated readings, and just like repeated readings are important, repeated writings are very important, because repeated writings give kids that ability to figure out, okay, where are the things I want, what do I want to say, and how am I going to say it? It's like 3 steps that they have to pull together when they're using an overlay like this. So they may not get it the way they really envision it the first or second time around. We give them some repeated readings, not enough that they're going to fall asleep. You know, I hate to walk in classrooms where people say, well, we have been working on this sentence for 6 months. Ooh. Oh, I had somebody say that to me. I said, well, what does he read? You know, we've been working on this sentence for 6 months and he still doesn't have it. I said, well, and what is the sentence? The teacher is standing by the door. I'm like, well, that would really be an incentive for me. I'd really like to be reading that sentence, wouldn't you? I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I can't even believe sometimes the things that come out of people's mouths. I'm like, I would not want to admit that if I were, you know, here's the consultant, the reading consultant come in, and I'm going to admit that I've been working on the same sentence for 6 weeks. I think I would like invent something maybe a little snazzier than that. So really important that we keep in mind that for the kids we're using these things for, for them, it's not like this automatic, oh, I see what you want me to do. Yeah, I got those pictures. I know where they are, and I'm going to plan it, and I'm going to figure it. It's not automatic, so they're going to need some time to figure it out. So here she is now writing with the keyboard. What do you think? The elephant. Okay, let's get him.
The elephant.
The elephant.
The elephant.
What did he do? Nice looking. Good job.
Went to the hospital.
He went to the hospital. Oh my God. Okay, so what I did is, I'm just following her eyes. She's using her eyes to select things. I'm taking her hand there. But if you watch, after every selection, she's getting her head up. But it's taking her a long time to get her head up. So I set the sentences to read twice. I wanted them to come up twice. So she's, in case it takes her a while to get there, she's not missing the words coming across the screen being highlighted that she just wrote. And so we can fool the computer into doing lots of things to give our kids the time they need.